We did 8.1. 8.1 is right triangle trig. That's what that was. So that's when we did SOHCAHTOA. SOHCAHTOA. And then when we came back from spring break on Monday, we started 8.2. Now 8.2 is the law of sines. So 8.2 is the law of sines. And that law, that's when we use that when we have either an angle side, or the bad word backwards. And we have to have a pair. But we don't need to, it doesn't have to be a right triangle. It could be an acute, it could be an obtuse, okay? I think because the majority of your test next week is word problems, is I'm gonna try to help you differentiate when to use what formula. So there is a reason why. Let me go ahead and read it out. It says you are cleaning the gutters on your house. The gutters are at a height of 34 feet. If you have a 50-foot ladder, what is the minimum angle the ladder can make or can form with the ground? Why do you think I highlighted the word height and put it in red and bolded it? Because what does height tell you? It does. What kind of angle, if I'm standing up straight, right? When you go to the doctor, they measure your height, you stand up, you don't lean, right? What angle am I forming with the ground? If I'm standing up straight, it's a right angle. So when you see this word, that means it's a 90-degree angle. There's certain words that indicate right triangle. One of them is height. The other one is perpendicular. You remember the words parallel and perpendicular? Perpendicular also means right triangle. So because this says height, I know that I'm going to draw a right triangle, which means I'm going to 8.1. Okay? Now, I will show you how you could do it using 8.2, because there is a way you can still do this with the law of sines. So let's go ahead and set it up. So I have my house. And then I have my ladder. And then under the ladder is my right triangle. Right there. So again, when we talk about height, when you measure your height, you're not slanted, you're not laying down, you're standing up straight. So if the height is 34, you have to put the 34 here. This is where the 34 will go. It also tells you that the ladder is 50. Well, this is my ladder, so I'm gonna put it 50, put the 50 here. Okay, so it's asking me to find the angle that the ladder can make with the ground. So is that this angle at the top, or am I trying to find this angle at the bottom? Which one of these angles is on the ground? The top angle or the bottom angle? The bottom angle. All right, so there's two different ways you can do this. The first one, I'm just redrawing it off to the side, is right triangle trig. What trig ratio am I going to use? If this is what I'm trying to find, what is 34? Is 34 opposite, adjacent, or the hypotenuse? Opposite. What's the 50? Is that adjacent or the hypotenuse? What trig ratio uses O and H? Sine. So to find x, x will equal the inverse sine of 34 over 50. All right, let's just say you don't recognize that. Either way, you will need to recognize that this is a right triangle though. you could also do the law of sines. Because do I have an opposite pair? Do I have an angle and a side that I know? An angle and an opposite side? Yeah. I know this is 90 and I know this is 50. So you could also do the law of sines and set it up. Sine of 90 over 50 equals the sine of x over 34. Personally, that looks like too much work. I would do that. But you get the same answer. The goal is to get there. You can take the highway, you can take the back roads, I don't care. So figure out what is that angle. This here, what is the angle? Whenever you're asked to find an angle, you have to do an inverse. You have to do an inverse whenever you're asked to find an angle. So when I type that in, I'm just doing the first way. I'm not going to do the bottom way. But when I type that in, I get the inverse sine of 34 over 50, which would be x equals 42.844 degrees. Anybody else get that? All right, well, since I'm ahead, which I'm like still shocked by that. I'm like, really? For real? They were all surprised that I was testing on Wednesday. Since I'm ahead, I'm gonna slow down. So how about we use this time to work on homework 14 that's due tomorrow? Now, what I want to talk about are the 3-word problems. All right, so take out your homework 14. I did take a little picture of the book, so we're going to talk about number 39. Number 39 is a homework question. So the last 3 questions are word problems. Now, I probably should have tried to adjust the contrast because I know it's dark, but I didn't think about it until like or So let's look at number 39. This is homework 14 that's due tomorrow. Now, in order to solve a lot of the word problems, you have to be able to identify critical vocabulary. Okay, and you also need to know a couple of things. You need to know when will it equal 180? Is a linear pair? When do we have a linear pair? When do we have a triangle? The triangle sum is 180. So I'm going to go ahead and read this. All right, it says, looking at the figure, to find the length of the span of a proposed ski lift from P to Q. So I don't know if you all can see, but from here to here, that's my PQ side. This is my PQ right there. Okay, that's what they want us to find. Okay, so they told us that a surveyor measured the angle DPQ to be 25. So I'm going to zoom in as close as I can. So they're telling us that this angle right here is 25. That's what they measured, the surveyor. You can't see that. Let me put that in black. Still really can't see it, but that's 25. Okay, so that's what we know. And then they also tell us that this distance is 1,000. They want us to find PQ. All right, so I'm going to zoom in really closely here. In order to find PQ, I need to know some more angles. And the only angle I know inside the triangle is 15. But they gave me enough hints that I could find this angle and the top angle. And just because it bothers me, I'm going to have to redraw it because I just don't really like it. So we got this, 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 Okay, so this is 25. So, and this is 15. Okay, so if this side, first of all, they're on a straight line. This is called a linear pair. If this side is 25, how will I find the opposite side? Because these two angles together add to 180. So pick up your calculators. Take 180 minus 25. And you should get 155. All right, now I know that this side is 1,000, but I'm still trying to find this angle. Okay, but remember, this is a triangle. This is a triangle right here. And what do we know about the angles inside of a triangle? They always add to what? So to find the angle at the top, I need to take 180 minus 155 minus 15. Which is going to give me what? What you get? 10. So do we have an angle in opposite side? Do I know the measure of the angle opposite of 1,000? What's the measure of the angle opposite of 1,000? 10. And keep in mind, I am trying to find this side right here. So I can set up the law of sines. So when I set it up, it's going to be the sine of 10 degrees over 1,000 equals, what is the sine opposite of that green line? What's the angle opposite? What angle is opposite of this? 15. So that's going to equal the sine of 15, and I'm just going to call this x. All right, you can go ahead and solve it from there. I'm not going to finish it up, but you can finish it from there. Any questions about how we set it up? The majority of your homework is word problems, so it's really important that you're able to illustrate and create the diagram. All right, so I'm not going to finish it out. Now let's look at the next word problem. So you all have time to finish it out. Compare your answers with your friends. But any questions about how I set it up? The critical part of this question is you figuring out that 10 degrees at the top. That's the critical part. You have to figure out how to get to that 10. So we had to do a couple of things to get there. All right, so the next word problem I think is a lot little. Oh, okay. All right, so the next word problem is number 43. Wait, which one did I do first? What number was that one? 39. All right, so let's do 43. Again, I tried my best to, take a picture, but it was rough. All right, so first word, triangle. Well, if I see triangle, I'm going to start off by drawing a triangle. That only makes sense to me. Draw me a triangle. So I'm going to read it, and then I want you to figure out. I am going to show you, but you need to figure out where to put these three numbers. So I'm going to read it out loud, and I want you to figure out where to put those three numbers. So the first thing it says is that along the straight road, would you agree only one side of my triangle is straight? All right, so that's where you should put the 200. And then it says a second side makes a 50-degree angle with that road. And the third side makes a 43-degree angle with that road. So you need to figure out where are you putting the 200, where are you putting the 43, and where are you putting the 50. So are both of these angles connected to this road? Both of those angles should be connected to the road. So when you set it up, the 200 should be at the bottom. $200 should be at the bottom. I don't know why my screen did this. Let me see if I can get this to expand. Okay. I don't know what it did. Okay, so the 200 goes here. And then one side has a 50 and the one side has a 43. It says, it says how long, sorry, not what. How long are the other two sides? So you need to find this side and you need to find this side. Can you figure out this angle though? Because in order to use the law of sines, you need to know what the measure of this angle is. And you're going to set up two proportions. One to find X and one to find Y. So I'm not going to do it. I'm going to let you all do it. Come around and peek over your shoulders. Make sure everybody got the right angle at the top. Okay. So you got to take 180 and subtract both of these to get that one. All right, so now let's look at the last question. The last one is number 51. So you all can go back and finish that one. If you haven't, feel free to compare answers with somebody. All right, so the last one is number 51. Okay. So we got the Leaning Tower of Pisa. So there is a famous Leaning Tower of Pisa. Pisa was originally 184.5 feet high. At a distance of 123 feet from the base of the tower, the angle of elevation to the top is found to be 60. So let me zoom in. I know it's super dark, but remember I told you that angle of elevation is always at the bottom. And it told us that this is 123, and we also have the distance here. So they want us to find angle RPQ. So let me trace that out. From R to P to Q would be this angle right here. So let's start off with that. Do we have enough information to find P? Not at the beginning, right? Because in order for me to immediately find big P, I would need to know little p. And do we know little p? Because this would be little p. So do we know this? No. But I do know little r. So what I can do is find big R and then use triangle sum to find big P. So this is a two-step question. You have to find big R so you can find big P. So I have the sine of R over 123 equals the sine of Q, which is 60, over 184.5. Now again, that's not going to be the angle I use, but I have to find big R so I can find big P. So go ahead and find big R. And then use triangle sum to find big P. So compare with your neighbor and see if they got the same thing for P. Again, we're looking for big P. First you find big R, and then you do triangle sum to find capital P. Okay, so now let's talk about the second part, because it asks for, see here it says, also find the perpendicular distance from R to PQ. So what that's saying is, if I zoom in to my little tower, perpendicular would be if I were to draw a straight line down. Okay, perpendicular means it has a 90-degree angle. How long is this green line? All right, so let me go ahead and redraw that triangle. So what I have for part B is I have this. This is what I have. Okay, and I know that this side is 184.5. It's asking me for this, which I'm going to call Y. So in order to do this, you have to have the right answer for angle P. Whatever you got for your angle, you're going to put that here. And then I will use sine, because Y is opposite. So does somebody want to tell me what they got for P? I'm not going to say if it's right or wrong, but somebody, what'd you get? 84.736. So that's what he got. I don't know if it's right or wrong, but he said it's 84.736. So let's just say that's right. Oops. Let's just say that that is correct. If this is 84, I'm just going to round it to 85, but you all use the exact number. This would be opposite. This is the hypotenuse. Then I would take what? Sine, cosine, or tangent. If I'm trying to find the opposite and I know the hypotenuse. So I would do the sine of, he said 84 point something equals opposite over hypotenuse. And then you would have to solve that as a proportion. So those are your 3-word problems. I also have a book if you want to actually do the homework instead of waiting for the airdrop to hit, okay, or for it to hit the group chat. That way you'll know that you actually know what you're doing, and you can be successful next week on the test.